Donald Trump indicted. Friends, let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, for everyone who cares about accountability, for everyone who cares about the rule of law, for everyone who cares about the health of our democracy, please trust, my friends, that today is a good day for our republic. You know, there's a saying that was beginning to ring hollow, that no person is above the law. Well, today's indictment of Donald Trump goes a long way to breathing life back into that promise. The promise that in America, no person is above the law. Let's look at the new Washington Post reporting. Headline, Trump indicted by New York grand jury, first ex-president charged with crime. And that article begins, a Manhattan grand jury has voted to indict former President Donald Trump, his lawyers said on Thursday, making him the first person in U.S. history to serve as commander-in-chief and then be charged with a crime. The indictment, which has the potential to alter the country's political and legal landscape, came weeks after speculation about whether and when Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg might take such a step. It sets the stage for a courthouse showdown between one of the most combative politicians in modern American history and local prosecutors who have pursued him for years. The indictment has yet to be unsealed, which means the charges and specific allegations have not been made public, but Bragg and his investigative team were probing whether Trump falsified business records connected to the payments, the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels, in a way that could constitute a campaign finance violation. So what happens now? Well, Donald Trump will be booked. Now, friends, I don't think there will be a perp walk. I don't think the police will go out, handcuff Donald Trump, transport him to the police station in New York to be booked. I think Alvin Bragg's prosecutors will negotiate with Donald Trump's defense attorneys for a voluntary surrender, a turn-in. And at the appointed time and at the appointed location, Donald Trump will arrive with his defense attorneys, no doubt, and he will be booked. Booking involves filling out a whole bunch of police paperwork. They will get lots of information from Donald Trump, name, biographical information, address, employment, etc. I know it all seems a little unusual because we sort of know this stuff. It's all publicly available information. And after they're done filling out all the necessary police paperwork, Donald Trump will be fingerprinted. Donald Trump will have arrest photos taken, what we often heard referred to as mugshots. I suspect they will become publicly available pretty promptly. And then Donald Trump will go to court to be arraigned. The arraignment is the first court hearing after someone has been indicted. What happens at an arraignment? Well, first of all, the judge will put the defendant on notice of the charges against which he will have to defend. How is that ordinarily accomplished? Well, the judge or the clerk of the court will actually read the indictment to the defendant. That's right. Donald Trump, when he walks into court to be arraigned, will have earned the title. He will have richly earned the title, defendant. So the court will read the charges to defendant Trump unless his attorney waives the reading of the charges. I will tell you, about 98% of the time, over my 30 years prosecuting cases, I was involved in more arraignment hearings than I could ever count. I would say about 98% of the time, The defense attorney waives reading of the indictment, but every once in a while, a defendant wants to hear his indictment read to him. We'll see which way defendant Trump plays it. And after the charges are read to Donald Trump, or he waives reading of the charges, a couple of other things will happen. A next court date will be set, a status hearing. It's very unlikely they will set a trial date at the arraignment. A trial date will probably be set sometime later. Rule of thumb is a trial date is ordinarily set about 6 months to a year out from the date of the arraignment. Not always, could be a little quicker, could take a little longer. But I don't suspect we will learn of a trial date until after Donald Trump makes his second court appearance after the arraignment. And then the question turns to what to do with defendant Trump pending trial. Now, I don't think anybody believes Donald Trump will be ordered jailed or detained pending trial. There are only two reasons a judge can order a defendant detained pending trial. If the judge concludes that the defendant is a flight risk, such that he will not return to court if released, or if the judge concludes that the defendant is a danger to the community. Donald Trump is clearly a danger to the community. He's a danger to our democracy. He proved it on January 6th, and he has proved it over and over again by posting inflammatory things that are designed to incite imminent lawless action, like if I'm indicted, protest, 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 take our nation back. He has threatened Alvin Bragg. He has made any number of threats to the prosecutors who are investigating his crimes. So yeah, Donald Trump is a danger to the community. But I don't suspect a judge will order him jailed or detained pending trial. I do believe the prosecutors may talk about what kind of conditions should be set for Donald Trump's release. For example, should the prosecutors ask the judge to prohibit Donald Trump from traveling outside the United States? I think that would be a wise condition to set to make sure he doesn't flee. Might the prosecutors ask that Donald Trump be ordered to surrender his passport? I think that would be a wise precaution to try to guard against Donald Trump fleeing. Donald Trump has his own plane, of course, so passport or no passport, I assume he could get out of the United States if he wanted to. Maybe the judge will take up placing certain conditions or restrictions on his travel. We'll see. Might the prosecutors take up some sort of restriction on his communications, his speech, his posts, because he incited imminent violence once before. Indeed, he incited deadly violence once before on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. Is he likely to do it again? Oh, you know what? My betting limit is $1. I am not a high roller, but I would bet $1 he will be inciting imminent lawlessness again. I have been saying all along, the first post he is likely to put up when he knows what his arraignment date is will be something like, "Come to Manhattan for my arraignment will be wild." So might the prosecutors ask the judge to put some restrictions on his speech or his posts? Maybe. Let me add that judges are loath to engage in what's called prior restraint on speech. It's a dicey area because of the broad First Amendment free speech protections. But you know what? The people of New York, indeed the people of the United States, also have an interest in a fair trial. So if Donald Trump is saying or posting things that would poison the well of the potential jury pool, that is a reason a judge could put some sort of limitations on Donald Trump's speech or posts via the internet. I hope the prosecution raises that concern, that issue, and makes some sort of reasonable requests for common sense restrictions to keep Donald Trump from inciting imminent lawless conduct. We'll see. sometimes a judge will put some very modest conditions in place when releasing a defendant pending trial and give the defendant the opportunity to either comply with those conditions or violate those conditions. And if Donald Trump violates conditions that are set by the judge regarding his speech or his posts, which again, I'll bet a buck he does, if those restrictions are put in place, then what judges often do is they incrementally ratchet up the restrictions. You know, give Donald Trump enough rope. And if he is persistent in violating the conditions set by the court, that moves the court in the direction of saying you can't be trusted on release to abide by the court's conditions. So now we may have to talk about pretrial detention. Again, I think very unlikely. I think there are legitimate safety concerns that, are conjured up when you talk about confining a former president of the United States pretrial. I think he deserves it, but I don't think it's likely to happen. Those issues will have to be dealt with. I'm not even going to say if, when Donald Trump is convicted and if he is sentenced to prison. Well, those security concerns will have to be addressed, and they will be addressed. But let me finish with this, friends, because we're going to be talking a lot in the coming days about what we can expect to see as this case moves through the system. What I will say right now is an indictment is ordinarily not a celebratory affair, right? And an indictment is no indication of guilt. Indeed, every jury is instructed by the judge at the beginning of the trial that an indictment is not evidence of guilt. It is merely the formal vehicle by which somebody is brought to trial. And juries may infer no guilt just because a defendant has been indicted. But when we have seen Donald Trump and other high government officials, the ruling class criminals, get away with everything for so long, I think this is a good development for our nation. It's not a bad development that a former president is being charged and maybe held accountable for at least some of his crimes. I think it moves us one or two steps away from being the banana republic it feels like we were becoming when we have rules in place like you can't indict a criminal sitting president, and it seemed like nobody was willing to indict a criminal former president. Well, never again can somebody say, we can't indict a former president for his crimes because there's no precedent. It's never been done before. Well, now it has been done. There is precedent. And the next precedent will be the president, former president, being tried for his crimes and convicted of his crimes and sentenced for his crimes. And if there's any justice in America, imprisoned for his crimes upon conviction. Because justice matters. Friends, it is a good day for our republic. Please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again soon.